Hello guys and gals of the internet, it's the Simic Girls of YouTube and Twitch TV. Welcome to F1 2020. I can't believe this game is even here. There were going to be some worries amongst a lot of fans that a lot of sports games this year would pretty much have to be postponed because of certain factors this year. Pretty much postponing sport till further notice. But here we are, with the full 22 race calendar, despite the recent changes to the calendar this year. This game features all 22 of them, and a bit of an invalid incentive for me this year, because look at the end of the final row there. You are not kidding yourselves, it's Michael Schumacher. This is the Michael Schumacher Deluxe Edition of F1 2020. Just like the Legends Edition last year with Senna and Prost, they've included a race model. And pretty much I was sold from that moment. And just like the Legends Edition as well, they have car liveries and helmet designs. And being a Michael Schumacher fan, you guys knew I was all over it. Oh my goodness, this has been the most excited I have been for a game since pretty much 2010, and for the same reasons. You know, Michael Schumacher returned at the end of 2009. He announced he was coming back with Mercedes, and then a few months later into 2010 the game was announced, and I was immediately hella excited for it. I feel the same here, because Michael Schumacher has not really featured in an F1 game since 2013's classic content. And obviously this is a huge step up from that. How far the F1 series has come since 2013, as now we actually get to look at him on the screen in a proper race model. Kudos to Codemasters for the attention to detail in this edition that I'll talk about in just a second actually. But another thing that really made me happy was a name, the audio name I'm going to pick here. I was initially going to go for Michael, but Michael isn't really a name in the audio name list, which was really odd, because it's quite a common name really. And I was just going through the names, trying to think of maybe a nickname I could give him. Rainmaster was there, but then I went a little bit further down and saw that.
Schumacher.
Oh yes. Oh, that was so perfect. I tell you guys, my giddy feeling went up notches after seeing that, and there's a reason that Schumacher actually is a name in this game. One, because I think they added it as, you know, it's the deluxe edition of the game, the Schumacher Deluxe Edition, and there's another reason that we may get into later on in time as videos come out for this game, as to another reason why. And because we're being Michael Schumacher for this game, we have to go with the option to change to the #1 car when we eventually become world champion, because I am planning to do a playthrough on this, and you may actually have already figured it out. Yes, I will be doing my team, and I'm going to leave it at that, because there is a video that I've recorded in the 3 days early access to the game. I've already recorded episode 0 of the My Team video, and that will come out maybe today, maybe tomorrow, depending on how the uploads go today. But for the immediate future, we are actually going to focus on the Deluxe Edition Classic cars that were added to the game for this year. The 91 Jordan, which was Schumacher's first ever entry into Formula 1 for the Jordan team, substituting for Bernard Gachot for personal reasons at the 1991 Belgian Grand Prix. He qualified in 7th position, which was the Jordan team's highest qualifying position to that point. And his race retired in the first few corners when his clutch failed, and he was out of the race, barely meters into the race, which is wildly unfortunate, but it was enough to gain the attention of the Benetton team immediately, and then the whole contractual thing happened, and he was a Benetton driver from Monza 91 to the end of 1995. next race, and the first race will poetically be at the Belgian Grand Prix when we get there. I'm just going to talk while we go through my initial settings here and set this up for the settings I'll be using for this game. And don't forget, this is the PC version, so you will see my graphic options. The second race will be in the 1994 Benetton. The 1994 season was Michael Schumacher's first championship, somewhat in very controversial fashion, with the rumours of the electrical designs on the car, with drive aids being banned in particular. Certain incidents, say passing Damon Hill on the formation lap in 94, which had Schumacher banned for 2 races. The Belgian Grand Prix win that was taken away from him for a floor infringement. And of course, the season culminating in the battle between Schumacher and Hill for the title. And then Schumacher and Hill having a controversial collision in the final race, with Schumacher out immediately and Damon Hill retiring in the pits due to failure of suspension. Yes, I would be a little bit biased towards Schumacher, but I think with 1994 in particular, my opinion, I feel it is a 50-50 situation. I think Damon Hill does go for a gap that wasn't really there looking at it, but of course Damon Hill, he's going for the title. He had every right to go for the gap. If you don't go for the gap, you might as well just stay at home, as Sebastian Vettel once said, or as the late great Ayrton Senna once said, if you don't go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver. And Damon Hill had every intention of going for that, but I think it was a closing door. I think it was a racing incident. I feel in this incident in particular that it wasn't an intention to take Hill out of the Grand Prix. Like with 1997, it's a lot more, it looks more intentional. You know, there is that, I've watched the European Grand Prix of 97 recently on F1 TV, and it does look worse than I think it actually is, because there is that jolt to the right that Schumacher makes. I don't think he intended to take Villeneuve out, because I don't think any F1 driver or racing driver for that matter ever goes into a race with the intention to take somebody out of it. I don't think any driver does that. Least of all Michael Schumacher. But, you know, it does look really bad, because that is just a jolt to the right, and I think, in my opinion, I think the FIA were right to do it, to exclude him from the championship. Schumacher had previous, and I think his previous really influenced the outcome of the 1997 decision to exclude him from the championship. He did keep his wins, but I think his position and his points were stripped. I think it was the right thing to do, considering the situation, and you know, it's a title fight. He does jolt to the right, he does have previous, so I think in the grand scheme of it, I really do think 97 was probably the right decision when you look at the circumstances. But 94 is a bit more 50-50. I feel it's a racing incident, and I think they made the right call, because, you know, Schumacher never really had a habit of taking anyone out or doing anything personally infringing apart from Damon Hill at the British Grand Prix. Of course, he passed him on the formation lap. He was told to come in for a penalty, and he refused to take his penalty, and then was black flagged, which means disqualification from the race, and refused to serve the black flag as well. So that's what led to Michael being banned for 2 races. And like I said, it all comes to the fore at the Adelaide race, and I think they made the right decision on that. And I also think they made the right decision regarding the 1997 championship. So following that will be, that race will actually be at the Australian Grand Prix, because that is where Michael won his first title. But of course, that was in Adelaide, so we're going to have to race in Melbourne when we get to the 1994 Benetton video. The 1995 Benetton will be at the Canadian Grand Prix, because in 1995 Michael Schumacher won the title at the Pacific Grand Prix, which isn't in the game. So we'll go with Canada, seeing as I believe that was Michael Schumacher's most successful circuit, in which he won 7 times, which I think is a record that Lewis Hamilton is probably very, very close to getting, I think, as he is with his wins and his total number of championships. Of course, Lewis Hamilton he may most likely beat Michael's wins this year, and he will most likely equal the 7 World Championships that he did earn that he did earn during his career. So yes, I think the wins will go, and it's very likely the titles might, if not next year, the year after. I think at one point both those records will go pretty soon. So following that will be the 2000 Ferrari. Will drive that round the Suzuka circuit because that's where he earned Ferrari's first world title since 1979 and his third. And the Ferrari 2004 we will drive around Monza, because even though that's not part of the deluxe edition, they have changed the Ferrari 2004 slightly to have his number 1 on the nose of the car and his name on the headrest, I believe. So there are going to be the 5 races that we do in these first batch of videos, and the Jordan Belgium Grand Prix will actually follow this, and then the next few races will be probably uploaded at around the same time. They are going to be very short videos, but we're going to be using them as showcases of those cars rather than any specific results. So having a look at this content for a moment, that helmet there is the 1991 helmet that he used at the Belgian Grand Prix. The second one is the helmet he used in 1994. The third helmet is the one he used in 1995, which looks very similar to the 94 helmet, to be fair. I think the red lines are longer and the black line at the bottom is longer. And the final helmet of this edition is my personal favourite, the red with the white stars on it that he used during his later Ferrari years. I think it was from the year 2000 around the Monaco Grand Prix, because apparently his and Barrichello's helmet were very similar, so it's very difficult to tell them apart, so Schumacher went with that red with the white stars. I also pre-ordering and owning the Schumacher Deluxe Edition also gives me access to the 70 edition content, and that helmet of the 70s helmet was really nice. I actually really enjoyed that. We've also got some suit liveries. That one is a really cool one, that first one. It gives away it says Schumacher's personal stats during his career in Formula 1. The second one is a homage to his 2011 race helmet that he used at the Belgian Grand Prix to mark 20 years since his debut. The white one is for the same reason. He had a white helmet to commemorate 300 Grand Prix. The red one, I'm not really sure. I think it's probably either to do with the Keep Fighting Foundation or just that Ferrari was his most successful spell, especially from 2000 to 2004. The last one is a nice blend of his country's flag colours, and that is the 17th edition race suit, which also looks really nice. The two below the 2 deluxe edition race suits there is the Senna and Prost edition. They have carried over from F1 2019, but they are actually called something different, I believe. They're not called Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. I personally like the white Schumacher suit, and I'll be using that for Michael's character in the My Team video, and I'll leave that as a surprise. I went with the white gloves at first, but I think I'm going to actually swap that out and put the red gloves on, because I feel the red gloves actually mesh with his white suit much better than the white gloves do. So even though I picked the white ones in this initial part, I'm actually going to switch to the red ones for future use. And for the helmet I'll most likely use the 1994 helmet, because that's the one with his the first one with his stars on. I do like the ones with the stars that he uses. The poses are for the grid run through when the commentators are going for the grid. It's a nice small thing. It's not really an important thing or a requested feature as much, but it's a nice touch. And like I said, with a lot of this deluxe edition content, the attention to detail they put into this whole thing is actually to be commended. You know, it's actually it's brilliant. The attention to detail is fantastic in this edition of the game. And of course, being a Michael Schumacher fan was just a huge incentive to buy it all on its own. But then seeing all of this was just like so giddy. I mean, these celebrations, it's nice to have custom celebrations. I really thought that was just the 70s one, and the 70s one was Schumacher's. but I think Racing Legend is his, which I was a bit confused at first, but I think he did do something like that, pointing to the sky there on the Monza podium, I believe, once. That's my Michael Schumacher right there, the Michael Schumacher leap for victory. And I'll tell you something, in motion right now, that looks like Michael Schumacher to me. That really does. He looks so good in motion. Like I said, the attention to detail is insane. And when he moves, it's like you think it's him. Such a great attention to detail. I wasn't too keen on it at first. You know, when I saw, I think there was an early video that came out showcasing the Schumacher edition stuff, and I kind of didn't think his face was quite right at first. I was like, of course it was a work in progress, so that was probably it. They've probably updated it since then, but in motion that looks so good. And of course I picked the Leap, even though that is the 70th edition celebration. I had to pick it, because every time I watched the trailer over and over again, and every time I saw that jump I smiled, because it reminded me of the glory days of Michael Schumacher. Almost every time he won, he did that jump, and it was just so good to see again. These car liveries then, I love the 71. I'm not too keen on this. I don't think that's really that great. I know what they were trying to do. They're trying to mesh away a mesh of all his colours during his career in Formula 1, but I'm not overly keen on that. I'm not really feeling that. I do like the Keep Fighting Foundation symbol on the car though, and the Keep Fighting Foundation, for those of you who don't know, was a Schumacher initiative set up about 3 or 4 years ago, I believe now it was. Maybe even less than that. Maybe it was only his third year, I think, maybe. And they really put that on they put the symbol on the car, along the nose, along the side. His signature, I think, is on one of the two of the cars as well, like around the car somewhere. And I really just like it. The attention to detail and this foundation symbol on the cars is great. I personally like this one the best. I think this is my favourite, the white one. And if you can use this in a certain mode, that would be great. And I've already recorded it, so I know that yes, you can use it in my team. And I was all over that. So that's my personal favourite. Tom Lady's actually laid claim to this one. Her favourite colour is red. So we decided I'll use the white car, she'll use the red car, I'll use the white suit, she'll use the red suit, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that is definitely my personal favourite in this content. Probably a personal favourite as a whole, actually, in the entire content, Deluxe Edition content. That's definitely my favourite thing about it. Of course, obviously, seeing the great man on the screen is the best thing about this. But yeah, I'll be rocking that livery in the My Team mode and maybe some multiplayer races if I decide to go in, because I would, but I'm not really good at the game, so I tend to stay away from online just for that reason. You can also set up a badge too, which is pretty cool. I've decided to skip most of it and just show you the end result I had, and I decided just to mix the three colours together. So the red star is something that you may have seen on the red car, the white car and the red car. The stars signal his championships, so I've decided to go with one of those, and I've decided to mix the white and gold together for the inner symbol. So that's what I'll be using. I think that can be used as a team badge, so I think I'll be using that for my team as well. And I'll leave it at that for now. That video will be coming up later. So one last thing we're going to do before we get to some actual racing action is just show you the cars that are in this edition right now. So they've taken a few of the cars out. A lot of the 70s cars are now missing, which is fine. I don't really focus on the classic cars that much, but of course this is Michael Schumacher, so I had to make an exception. So this Jordan 191 is just so authentic. I think it has Schumacher's name somewhere on the car. I'm not really sure, but it's so authentic. Now, of course, a lot of the sponsors on these cars will probably be missing, because, of course, they're tobacco companies, and F1 2020 is a PEGI 3 game, so they won't be allowed to focus to put tobacco sponsors on the cars. But even with that, this car looks pretty much on point, actually. And I love the look of this car. The 7-Up, the 7-Up thing was just so cool to look at. I started watching F1 in 1997, so I didn't even know at the time that this was one of his cars. I found out much later, and just look at that. That is just so cool. 7-Up, it actually reminds me of the game Cool Spot on the Mega Drive. Do you guys remember that game? That was an awesome game. And there it is. There's Michael Schumacher's name on the headrest there. So they probably added that. Actually, they've probably added that to the car by themselves, which is pretty cool. I think you saw the 32 on the front of the car. That was Schumacher's number in '91 in that Grand Prix. So, like I said, the '94 Benetton, the big debate over this car and its legality was a big thing in 1994, and obviously in '94 we had the sad passings of Roland Metzelberger and Ayrton Senna, and it was a very dark and very highly political year in Formula One, and the Benetton made a name for itself. I think it was fuel infringements. That like I said, he lost the Belgian Grand Prix victory to a floor infringement. Like I said, allegations of traction control, ABS, and driver aids were banned. This was a very controversial car with the rumours of everything going around. But it did win Michael Schumacher's first championship. I believe he won 9 races that year. I could be wrong, but I think he won 9. I know he definitely won 9 in 1995, but I can't remember. I think it was 94. I think it was. Now this one is a beauty. I love the 95 Benetton. It's my favourite car visually of the cars in this edition. It's almost on point. I haven't driven this beauty since Formula 1 on the PlayStation 1. And oh my, it's just so cool. It's just so cool to look at. That is, again, Codemasters, the attention to detail is incredible. I adore this car. It's definitely one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite in the deluxe edition. The number 1, his name on it, his car, the car that drove to 9 victories and a more convincing win of his second title than his first 9 wins, 11 in all, with the 2 from Johnny Herbert. The Ferrari 2000, the car that gave Ferrari its first world championship since 1979. Drivers' World Champion, the last one being Jody Scheckter before that point, and was really the first car of the dominant era that was Ferrari and Michael Schumacher. And again, the attention to detail is just so on point. Of course, the tobacco sponsors like Marlboro, they're missing, but again, even with that, you can definitely tell it is a Michael Schumacher Ferrari type car, even with the missing of that. So that's going to be really fun to drive, I feel. We'll know that at Suzuka. And the F2004 was actually in last year's game, but they have changed it. I think it's been in the game since F1 2017, I think, or 2016 when classic cars were back in the game since 2013. But the 2004 Ferrari was the all-conquering Ferrari of 2004. 13 wins for Michael Schumacher, a further 2 or 3 from Rubens Barrichello. I think it was more dominant in 02 Ferrari, and that was a beast because Michael Schumacher that year finished all races on the podium, I think. 2004 wasn't like that, but it was still hugely dominant, and it was the final year of Ferrari's dominance before Renault came and overtook them for the 2005 and 6 seasons. They've changed this car slightly with Schumacher, like I said, Schumacher's name on the car and the number 1 on the front wing nose cone, as you could probably see maybe in this next shot. There it is, and Schumacher's name's on the headrest somewhere in that on that car as well. And obviously all the other cars from last year, the 2010 Red Bull and McLaren, the 2007 Ferrari, the 2009 Brawn, all present and accounted for from last year's game. Like I said, with the addition of the new cars in the deluxe edition from Schumacher, some of the cars were taken out. They've also, the 88 McLaren number 90 Ferrari was also from last year's game, which have carried over, and that is the first of the cars. They've taken a lot of the 17 ones out, probably to make space for the new ones, which makes sense. So let's finally go to some racing then. classic content, the Jordan 91 at the Belgian Grand Prix. It had to be done. It's poetic. And like I said, we're not really looking for any speed or any, like racing or anything with the AI, because I assume that this car is going to be with the other 90s cars, like the McLaren 98, for example, which are going to be much faster than the car we're driving. Now that was a nice touch there. You saw the option to apply the race suit to the car you're driving. That'll come through in the 94 Benetton race, and there'll be a small snippet of it in before we head to the qualifying session of what that means. But that's a nice touch, how you can have the race suit and all the Michael Schumacher looking things for when he drove the Jordan of 91. So that's a nice touch there. We're just going through, I'm just reading what these says. Obviously F1 2010 is the most accessible game to date with a new casual setting that will help drivers who are unfamiliar with the game or the sport to drive the car by keeping you on the track, brakes assist, ERS assist, and all that. Of course, I'm a bit of a game veteran, I guess, so I'll be going with the standard with the majority of assists off. The only assists I'll be having will be the automatic gearbox and the corner line. We're going to go single class, and we're going to have a single practice session just to get used to the car. We'll have one shot qualifying, and we'll have 5 laps. So yeah, these classic races are not going to be very long videos. This is really just to show you each of the cars and have their own video dedicated to it. So there will be a lot of videos maybe on the first day of uploading this game, but it's really just to showcase the classic cars in the game. And like I said, we're not really looking for any performance wise, we're just checking these cars out. So yeah, it's all the traditional stuff. I'll have flashbacks on because we're not really doing anything serious. All assists off, and time of day and weather all official and dynamic as usual. So let's go. Let's jump in this absolutely beautiful looking car. Let's see how it drives. And that's a nice, that is a very nice sound to hear. Now I believe this was coming to the end of Formula 1 turbo era back then, so I think the 94 Benetton and 91 Jordan will sound more like turbo cars, for example, or something like that. And then the 95 Benetton will sound gorgeous because it will be the V12 monster that car was at the time. That car's going to be particularly fun to go around in. I wasn't really particularly a big fan of this camera view here, because it takes the helmet off, but I think that's due to the size of the car rather than any camera options, because I didn't really change any of the options in the camera tab. But that, yeah, that's really cool. Look, check this out. If you squint your eyes and look into your screen long enough, if you're behind, like if you're looking behind you, you could actually see Schumacher's eyes and his face focusing on the track if you squint hard enough. And I've learned that really nice attention to detail there from Codemasters. They've definitely got the attention to detail locked down in this game. As for driving the car, I actually found this really difficult to drive at first, because one thing I really noticed about, especially the 90s cars, was the way the back end would just step out. Even if you just nudge the curb, the car would step out. It's a very light and nimble cars, and you can definitely tell because the back end just would not stay straight a lot of the time during these practice runs. And there's another example of it there. So that's twice I've lost the back end just hitting the curb. And we're currently P5 in the session for the moment. Oh dear. Oh dear, we are in the wall, lads. We are in the wall, and that was what I was telling you about. The back end just steps out. As if you so much as kiss a curb on this game, in these cars, you're losing the back end and straight into the wall, and that's what happened there. So yeah, that's gonna be the first crash, and it's probably not gonna be the last that I have in these cars for sure. As the 95 Benetton, I think it was behind us. We ended the day in 16th place, and I believe my teammate was 18th, so that really proves the discrepancy with the cars we're driving for the moment. And here's that race suit I was telling you about. Look at that. that really brings back memories of 1991 for a lot of people. I wasn't watching F1 back then, so I didn't even know who Michael Schumacher really was until the end of 1997. But yeah, that's a real nice touch. But in the Jordan, you actually get Schumacher's race suit and hat. That was really cool. So obviously, just one-shot qualifying. Like I said, we're not really going to be racing very seriously here. We're just going to check these cars out. And already, I seem to be a long way off the pace. And like I said, there's going to be quite a discrepancy between the cars on the grid. The 98 McLarens are in this class, so I'm pretty much expecting them to be running away with the races that I recorded in the 90s section, and probably in the 2000 Ferrari. I'm probably expecting the 2004 Ferrari to just be the class of the field. So we'll have to make the best of our situation. I think looking back on it now, I think I probably should have done multi-class racing rather than single-class. But like I said, we're not trying to do anything serious here. We're just checking out these cars for the first time. It's the first time I've ever driven Michael's 91 Jordan. I've never had the opportunity to drive it before, and I don't think anyone has, because I don't think F1 games were even a thing back then. So yeah, this is a first for everybody. This car, and it's kind of a shame that Schumacher didn't really get to drive more of this car, because Jordan was a good team in 91. They were a really good fledgling team in this game. They were definitely taking the world by storm as a rookie team, and they were putting F1 on notice, and then they became genuine race winners in 98 and genuine title contenders in 99. So Jordan had it really good in the 90s, didn't they? They started out well, and they progressively got better into 1999 when they became challengers with Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Remember him? But yeah, this is where it all started for them. As I think we're going to end up P12 in this one-shot qualifying session, which isn't bad considering we were 16th in the practice. So that's a nice improvement actually over the practice session. We're just going to jump straight to the race. Obviously, there's no real pre-race introductions in the classic section. They're not as in depth as the 2020 races, which will be coming a little later on. So here come the 5 red lights in for the first race on F1 2020. The first race in this Jordan. Lights out, and away we go then. And we are away, and oh my goodness me, we've spun, and we hit the wall again. We hit the wall of the start line, lads. That was embarrassing, I'm not going to lie. So this is take 1. Alright, 5 red lights then. Let's try that again, shall we? Lights out, and away we go, and the Ferrari of 91 gets a rocket start there, as you can see, flying past the McLaren, I think it was in front of us. Now, bear in mind that we are in the classic cars, and that means that we will have all these made-up driver names. There'll be no one official driving these cars, and that's how Codemasters get around with the licensing. But of course, with me, we were able to name our man Michael Schumacher, so he'll probably be the only official racer on this grid if we get hit by someone behind us. And we're actually going to be going into battle with, I believe it's the 1991 Ferrari down the straight, and that is a closing door, and we're going to have to wait our turn on that one. There's battle going up further down the field. I think it was almost 3 wide. I can't really tell who the cars are. I believe there's a McLaren in there, maybe a 90s McLaren or something. I'm not sure which one it is exactly, but there was a battle. There is a bit of a queue forming up here, so if we're going to make any positions, it has to be now while the AI is getting into the group, as it were. Is that 96 Williams right there as we send it against the Ferrari? We actually make contact with him. We do make the place, so Michael Schumacher must make his way past into 13th place. I think one of the 96 Williams has fallen back there out of the top 10, which is a surprise, because the 96 Williams was a very dominant car, to be fair. So that has been a poor start from that guy in that Williams, as he's fallen down to 12th place. Top 10 would probably be realistic here, but we've only got a 5-lap race, so of course this is just to showcase these cars, so we're only having very short qualifying and racing trim here, but we've got to try and keep everyone behind us, and I have no idea how the AI is going to be this time around. Obviously it's a brand new game, and we've all heard from the early videos from our Tom and Tyler Merlin that the AI actually make mistakes in this game now, which should be quite interesting if that ends up happening in this race. I'm not really sure what car that is. I know one of them is a McLaren on the right there. It might even be a Benetton in 12. I'm not really sure which one it is. Let's see if we can get a closer look through the source. I think it's a Benetton. I think it might be a Benetton, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Don't quote me on that. Let's see. Going into this corner. We try to get it past the McLaren. Are we going to send it round the outside? Yes, we are. And are we going to get 12? Yes, we are. It's a great move there from Michael Schumacher into 12th place. And right around the outside, which turned into the inside. Great move. And that was the last of the moves, unfortunately, as we end up on the final lap. And everyone raced away. It's pretty much expected. The Jordan 91 is probably going to be the least powerful of the vehicles in this class. So considering that, and considering we were 16th in practice, it's been steady improvement all day on. There is a new overlay for you. There's a new thing on the screen detailing the driver on the day on the screen, like they do in real life Formula 1. There's another new kind of overlay that will pop up in the 2 races I've recorded following the 2006 Ferrari race. We'll be having my first races at Vietnam and Zandvoort there as well, so keep your eyes peeled for that in the future. So really just a showcase of this car. The Jordan 91 definitely was an interesting car to drive, but with a very unstable back end, which just wanted to step out every time you turned or hit a curb. But that was a very interesting experience, a nice throwback to retro Michael Schumacher. So that is it for the footage so far then of the 91 Jordan. Next will be the 94 Benetton, as I said, at the Australian Grand Prix, the scene of Michael Schumacher's first title win. I will see you then. Check out the other classic content videos I have probably coming up on the screen in just a second. And I will see you for whichever one you pick. Until then, guys, you guys know what to do. Follow, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Social media is down in the description. And I will see you in the next classic race. I'm Schumacher, signing off. Peace out and stay awesome.